Major moves. We going all in, like we got nothing to lose. We making moves. We making major moves. We making moves. We making major moves. We making moves.
Welcome back to my channel. I want to thank you guys for actively deciding to spend time with me. I'm just a guy in a Spider-Man mask, a cool one I might add. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just providing information and content already on the internet, and I just read it and present it to you guys in a way that may reach you or may not reach you. Whatever the reason is you found my page, I'm grateful you're here, and thank you for spending time with me. Let's get into this.
Awesome. This is very exciting. I've been looking forward for this one. Mr. Man, thank you for taking the time to speak with us and to share your knowledge, your thoughts, and your opinions on real estate and crypto. But for those, my friend, who may not know you, please introduce yourself, Mr. Man.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Mr. Man. I appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out with myself here. And I want to introduce you guys to my real estate coach, Rene. Him and I have been collaborating now for about a year and a half when we finally connected. And it's been nothing but gold ever since. But just going back to your question, I'm Mr. Man. My first name is Mr., last name Man on my birth certificate. And I study cryptocurrencies day in, day out. I work for an aviation company, so I understand regulations. I also have my hand in real estate. My 9 to 5 is in aviation, but my real job and my real life passion is real estate and cryptocurrency. So when it comes to regulations, I don't shy away from those at all. Awesome. So I'm the man for that. I've been doing this now and focusing on it now for about, I want to say, since the whole COVID thing dropped down. Isn't that when I pulled away for a bit? Because I kind of like, this is new.
So can we get a location just so that people know, or is location
Yeah,
mysterious?
absolutely. So I am located up in northwestern Ontario, a little town called Sioux Lookout. If you happen to see a guy walking around in a Spider-Man mask, probably not me.
I love it. Okay. What mask? What are you talking about? Okay, yeah. So tell us what your thoughts are, and why is it important to be talking about real estate and cryptocurrency and investing and telling people about it. Tell us more.
Man, okay. The time we are going in right now is like the time to be looking to invest. Like, have your cold cash or your powder on the side, because with prices as low as they are right now, or going to be as low as they are, sorry, we've hit a I want to say hit a pinnacle, or hit a pinnacle or hit a top within 2022, I want to say, as the buildup of real estate was going up and people were bidding over asking at that point, and rates were low. We hit an imbalance. So as people were bidding up 100,000, 200,000 over asking, and now rates are creeping up. If you hadn't locked in at that point, you're getting your stuff handed to you, essentially, because the mortgage is going up with that interest rate. So I wasn't sure what was going on, but I saw in the very beginning, I had seen the rates begin to rise up. So I had converted my open variable terms to fixed. And with real estate, that's not something I typically do. Like, I like to keep it open, so I have flexibility with that. So I decided to keep it open. And that move to convert it into fixed, I had paid for that. I caught the cost a little bit to do that move there, but in the end, so far, it's paying off.
How do you think we're going to go into worse, or are we done with the worst?
I definitely foresee worse. We're sitting at like 5.85. My buddy had done an evaluation recently to check out a property and put a down payment on it, and he was quoted at 5.85. And I see, before we reach the end of this bear market here, we're going to have a blow off the top moment. There has to be. Picture a heartbeat or a pulse, before the person dies, there's that huge spike before it drops off. And I feel that's where we're coming to. I don't know when, but we've been sitting inside this bear market for so long, spikes up, spikes down, but it's been fairly flat at a low. So something's gonna give soon. And I
So,
believe the catalyst that breaks is
yep.
going to be real estate through commercial mortgage-backed securities.
Tell us more about that.
So there was a movie. Have you ever seen The Wolf of Wall Street?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, that movie explains it perfectly. I hope I don't do a bad job in explaining this, but in terms of all the mortgages that the commercial mortgages that were out there, the Wall Street had created bonds from those mortgages, and with those bonds, people were investing in those bonds, which made the mortgages very volatile at that point. So with these volatile bonds and backed by the mortgages now, and as the mortgage rate began to rise, that made those bonds very, very shaky at that point. So if you were holding one of those bonds or a mortgage-backed security at that
Mm.
point, you were connected to the real estate. So if this fell, you were taking a hit. So that's two entities falling at once.
It sounds really reminiscent of 2008. Are we back
Yeah,
in 2008? Are we going through this again? Like, I thought we learned something from 2008.
I want to say we did learn something, but people tend to forget things really quickly.
It's
So,
it's just like
but
it wasn't like it's like 12 years ago. It was now 12, 13. Like I can't-
but this time around is a little different because it's not just mortgages. It's mortgages and a currency reevaluation every 100 years or so, between 80 and 100 and so years. There's a currency reevaluation. Back in 2008, you remember when Argentina had their currency reevaluation. When I say reevaluation, their dollar dropped, just
yeah,
fell off a cliff at that point, and people
the
that
whole
had their
economy
pension,
fell apart.
yeah, yeah. So picture that now on a global scale, with the US dollar being the global reserve currency.
So
To give
so
go,
what's gonna if it's gonna if we're in the transition? I love this about the transition of currency.
mhm,
Clearly, like who's going to be holding the reserve currency, and obviously the United States are going to be just giving that up anytime
mhm.
soon. They're going to fight to retain that. So how do you see it playing out?
Absolutely. So right now there's this proxy war with Russia and Ukraine, which is in the forefront of things. And the way things work in our physical world, we see what's happening, but behind the scenes, we have no clue what's happening unless you happen to follow what's going on. And in the forefront, it seems like Russia and Ukraine are against each other and fighting for whatever they're fighting for. But behind the scenes,
Yep.
they're like handshaking, fist bumping. Hey,
Really?
I'll see you on Saturday. How's little Sarah doing? I'll see you guys at the pool. Oh yeah, the bankers are shaking hands and everything. I mean, to have these bilateral agreements and to get these signatures and agreements and to update the codes and regulations and legislation, they have to work together.
So
They're all working
what's
together.
so for what reason? What purpose?
So we are transitioning, as you were saying, from this physical currency fiat as we know it now to a digital fiat currency.
Mm,
So where we have our physical dollars in paper form
yep.
are now being tokenized into a digital dollar form, which are known as stable coins. And when I say tokenized, just picture a digital representation of it. So I have my dollar here, and if I put it in the bank machine, it goes into the bank machine. Now here's that digital dollar, that digital representation of this. So it's not $2, it's just $1 that's here now, and now it's a digital representation of it. It's not just a number on my phone anymore, it has value at that point.
And do you see this as a good thing for society progressing as a democracy? What's your take on that?
It's interesting, actually. That's a that's a really good question. It's interesting because I want to say, in terms of convenience, which we as humans have come now to expect in the society have come to expect convenience.
Yep.
With our lives, we want things to get easier and to become a lot more faster so we can free up time. But at the same time, with that convenience, we give up a certain amount of control.
Yes.
That way, something else can do the things that we don't want to do, whatever that is. And
We're
that
getting
includes money.
convenience, but what are we losing?
Well, with with one of the big things right now that people have concerns with are CBDCs. Have you heard that term before?
No, what's CBDCs?
A CBDC is a central bank digital currency. So it's essentially a, was it a debit or credit? A debit on the central bank's balance sheets. And with that, there are subledgers of subledgers. So you have the central banks with their ledger between central banks, and then you have the central banks issuing value or currency to the commercial banks at that point. So then you have the subledger there, and then commercial banks issue money to us or currency to us, which is now a subledger. So in those different
Levels or sections?
steps, ripple
Slice?
steps, yeah,
Yeah.
sections, there's information being given each time, and it's digital at that point. So what information you're giving at that point, it's really hard to tell. Central banks state that they don't want to be the bank to be the one endeavoring on KYC, which is know your customers,
Yeah.
which is typically what a commercial bank does. You walk into your CIBC, sorry, and you get your debit card, you swipe it, and they're like, "Oh, hey, how you doing, Rene? How's everything going?" They know who
Yeah.
you are at that point, right? The minute you swipe that card, that commercial bank knows who you are, but there's information being passed along to the central banks that not necessarily your name, not necessarily your address of where you live, but now they'll have how much money was moved or taken out, what location this was at, what day of time, what time of day it was at. So there is information being given up, because information right now is the new gold.
So we're giving up a bit of our information, and with giving up information, we're giving up a bit of our control.
Exactly. A lot of people like to look to China
Yeah.
in terms of what's to come. I don't look that far, because I want to say for North America, that's a far stretch for us, but you never know. The way China's doing it, they have a digital dictatorship, if you will, where they have a model that's a direct model, where here in North America we have a two-tier model. So you have the central bank, the commercial bank, then the end user. So then the money or the currency comes from the central bank to the commercial to us. So our interactions with the commercial bank. In China, it's directly from the central bank to the end user. So whatever the central bank wants, the central bank does at that point, and the end user is just, you got to deal with whatever the central bank wants.
So going back to, we're losing a bit of control, but we've got more convenience.
Mm-hmm.
What about the reserve? Who's going to have the reserve currency? How does that going to play out? Is it going to be in the next 10, 20 years, 30? What's your take on that?
That's interesting. So with what Ray Dalio, the economist, was talking about in terms of the changing powers, I believe it is. We are in, like, right now, the US is in this down spiral here, and you can see the rise of China coming up. I'm not going to say China's dollar, the renminbi, is going to be the reserve currency right now or today or tomorrow, but it will definitely be gaining strength and will definitely be a powerhouse in the future. To what timeline, I don't know. But there's always a battle. There's always like in our world, there's always a battle for that
dominance. The dominance.
Yeah, for that
it's
dominance.
So clear. The countries, they're we're Canadians. We're not really part of that, but the Americans and China and other countries,
Mm-hmm.
Soviet, definitely they're part of that dominance where they.
It's interesting that you say that, because we have a sovereign currency,
yeah,
which is literally backed by nothing now. So in 1971, the U.S. had removed their dollar from the U.S. From gold at that point, so they had depegged it. Canada, we have no gold. We sold all our gold in 2016. So, like, I don't know where that even leaves us.
We're just, whatever happened to the States, we're just following. That's about it. That's what it comes down to it. So when do you see this happening? This currency switch?
We are in, like, the midst of it. We've been in the midst of it. Actually, I'm glad you asked that, because recently I was looking at the UCC, which is the Universal Commercial Codes, which is all looked after by legal entities, lawyers, attorneys, whatever you want to call them. And now sections 1 through 12, excluding 6, now include digital currencies.
Mm,
So money is considered, like digital currencies are considered money, excluding Bitcoin. And they state that excluding Bitcoin,
why excluding Bitcoin?
because Bitcoin's not money or currency, if you will,
Yet.
at all. People like to consider it currency, but it's not. What Bitcoin is a mechanism to transfer information from me to you, from end user to end user. So if I transfer Bitcoin to you, I'm not transferring value. I'm just transferring. Mr. Man had 5 Bitcoin, and I transferred 5 Bitcoin at this date, at this time, from this wallet address down here to Rene at this date, at this time, at this wallet address. No value had moved other than USD, because Bitcoin is backed by USD.
How is it backed by USD?
If there was no USD, US dollar, the currency, Bitcoin couldn't really exist.
And a lot of it has to do with just trust. I mean, as you mentioned, the dollar has no value. It's not backed by gold or anything. So we trust it just because it's often backed by weapons, obviously weapons and
In government, we trust.
and oil and government that we trust.
Well. It used to be backed by oil. Used to be. In the process, OPEC Plus is in the process of depegging from that, from the US dollar, the currency itself, and China and Russia now have struck their own deals to with Saudi Arabia, I believe it is, to value everything, to value
based on what
oil in the ruble, in the ruble itself, not the US dollar anymore.
I got the impression the United States of America do not like that very much.
You'd be right.
This is where wars are started.
Yeah, that's exactly where they started. And then you have China has been poking the bear recently. There's been, I guess, police of sorts found in Canada, Chinese police found in Canada, and same with US. And then, was it a few months back, there was that balloon, that Chinese balloon or something, floating across the US, and the US had spent, I don't know how much, thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars with missiles to shoot this balloon down. And
so do you see the next 5 years? Do you see a bigger battles?
Actually,
proxy wars. You see proxy wars going even worse. Are they coming to North America? Is there going to be another 9/11?
We've already started that in Philadelphia. I've seen video captures of tanks rolling into the streets already. I mean, it gets really bad for banks, and when it gets really bad for banks, you will definitely see tanks in the streets, because the bankers want to protect their investments. It's their investments. We are just the ones that deposit money into their bank accounts. Banks aren't required to hold any collateral. 0% interest in terms of holding. So the minute you walk into a bank, put your money into that bank, they turn around, okay, thank you, Mr. Masse, and they go and reinvest it in something else. But if you walk, I forgot my money, I want to take $5,000 back out.
Yeah.
Hold up there. Give us 3 to 5 business days. I was just
it's
here.
Now 5. It's now 5 business days. Really transferring funds. But what about insurance? Isn't some backed by insurance from the government? Like easily, what I was told, 250,000 or so.
Yeah. So the FDIC claims to be able to back up to $250,000 for individuals up to a certain amount. Hypothetically, that sounds really great, but imagine the whole U.S. economy losing their money. So with that being said, the U.S. or the FDIC has now issued a thing called bail-ins. And what a bail-in is, to describe that, I'll describe a bailout and then a bail-in. So you walk into a bank, you put your money into a bank, the bank begins to fail. The government or the central bank can now help. You know what? I'm the central bank. I can help you out. Not a problem. I can help you stay afloat for as long as we can figure this out. A bail-in, you walk into the bank, deposit your money, that bank begins to struggle. Your money is the bank's money.
Oh.
Yeah, your money is the bank's money. So I don't keep too much cash in the bank. I keep enough to pay my bills, and I keep cold cash. I have gold, I have silver, I invest in real estate, and I have cryptocurrencies. If barterability becomes a thing, I have cash. If the market takes a drop even deeper, like I believe it's going to, I have cash. I want to pick up more real estate. I want to pick up cheap cryptocurrencies. I want to pick up more gold and more silver. And the reason for gold and silver, when people lose faith in the fiat dollar currency that we hold in our wallets, they run to real money, God's money, which is gold and silver. If you have it early enough, you can be in that bubble before it even begins.
Wouldn't I hope it doesn't get to that level. I'm just thinking, all right, I buy some gold, put it in my safe, everything falls apart. I go to the corner store, pay with gold. I'm gonna get jumped. I'm gonna need a gun just to protect myself if with that gold and silver.
Absolutely, you will. So,
Okay, all right, it's validated. Great.
yeah, absolutely.
Are you suggesting people to buy gold, silver, but also protect it?
Absolutely. When it comes to your wealth, you have to preserve your own wealth. Essentially, you need to be your own bank. The same way a bank would be willing to put tanks into the street to protect their investments, you need to be able to protect your investment. I'm not recommending that someone goes out there and go gets firearms and whatever else they need. However, for my own personal life and for my own sanity and well-being of my family, I do have my firearms license. I do own firearms. I do have ammunition. I have slingshots. I am pretty decent with the bow as well.
No doubt about it. I'm not questioning it at all.
You just never know. I mean, desperate times call for desperate measures. And if I happen to have these things and people happen to know that I have these things, they're going to go to the exactly.
Yeah. So what else do you suggest people do in preparation for? Is it Armageddon? Is it not the? We're more troubled times. This is what you see as more troubled times moving forward. We're not
Yeah.
out of this anytime soon because there's more complications on the world front with currency, and switching that currency from one reserve to the other is never a pleasant moment.
No, absolutely. You're right with that.
So what do you
One,
suggest people do?
so one of the things I've done, well, several of the things I've done, I have a food storage now in my basement here. I have 2 shelves. I have canned goods there.
Yep.
I have chips. You know, you want some chips. Chips are great.
Yes.
I have a bunch of dehydrated meat. I have canned meat. Learned to dehydrate myself. I have my own dehydrator. I have 2 freezers full of meat, vegetables. We've learned to garden as best as we can. We're typically on the road or renovating or trying to get permits for this or calling people for that. So
what about a generator? Getting like a self generator that
yes, we do have a generator as well. A generator because should power I'm sure you've read some articles now where France was experiencing power outages, Europe was experiencing power outages last summer, and I don't foresee that stopping. I spoke to some people out in South Africa. I have friends out in Chile and Peru, and they experience power outages quite frequently. So to have a generator would be awesome. You never know what's going to happen with the water. I know right now they have chlorine and fluoride in the water, and in terms of the human body and ecosystem, those substances are not good for us. So I also have a filtration system for that. But I choose not to use tap water. I have a stream that I can drive to and get fresh water itself. And I can just run that fresh water through a filter. Um, what else? I do, should things ever get bad, I pray they don't get bad. I'd rather be prepared and have these things and never need them than to need these things and not have them. I do have a military vest as well, but just
hopefully I mean let's be positive on this. Let's hope that it never happens, but let's also be realistic. We're going through some changes, and I was talking to a friend yesterday where it feels as if we're the past couple of years we were on reserves of certain things. We were holding. It was like not that I've ever lived it, but England back in the 40s during the war, right in the beginning of World War II, where we're rationing things. We're waiting for materials. We've experienced it. It appears as if we're still experiencing that type of thing. The slowdown, the economy, people less people traveling, less people spending.
That's
Um,
exactly what's going on.
okay, so what can the Canadian do? A typical Canadian do to make sure that him or her and their family goes through this experience unscathed, or at best, not unscathed, but profitable. Not profitable, but better off than where they are now.
I'll try to touch on all of those: unscathed, profitable, and better off than where they are now. If you want to be better off than where you are now,
Yep.
plan ahead and hedge against this. Um, Fuel is going to be one of the biggest catalysts to go up because, again, energy is the new currency.
Yep.
And most people, 90% of people, I want to say, maybe not 99% of people, have combustion vehicles. So if you can maybe stock up on some fuel, if you can afford to, while it's still cheap.
Really?
My partner and I, we do have some fuel, like jerry cans from last summer when it was cheaper than it is this summer, because we foresaw this now for about 2 years. So we've just been slowly, gradually buying and using and just rotating these
Does
things out.
doesn't oil last about 3-4 months at most?
Yeah, but we put fuel stabilizer in there, and then
Ah,
the plan is to rotate them out. So every time we use one, refill it again, and just put that one in the back, and do the same thing, so on and so forth. Um, Another thing is to have dry cash on the side. When I say dry cash, just access to cash, not in a bank. We have to
yeah.
go in, ask for your money. Just have a place where you keep money, like a safe behind a wall, under your pillow, in your wallet, just wherever. Just have a sum of, just a
I
sum
want to
of.
see these safes behind the pillow. That would be awesome. You sleep on your safe. So,
Just I mean, not many people walk around with cash anymore. Like it used to be the
no.
thing back in the day. Like I remember growing up in the 80s, checks were the thing.
Oh
And
yeah, I
then
remember
as
how
like
to check.
yeah, and then I got into the 90s, 2000s, checks were like, what's a check?
No,
You
no.
know? And then in the
So
early two go ahead.
what about real estate? 'Cause a lot of people that listen to this are involved in real estate. How do you see real estate in the next 5 years or so in
Okay.
Ontario, specifically Ontario? I mean, we've got 500,000 immigrants coming each and every year for the next 3 years, which is a wonderful thing for our economy, for housing. There's a housing shortage at the moment, and as you know, half of the immigration comes to Southern Ontario. So we're not out of this housing crisis, even though the interest rates were very high. Things have diminished a bit the from last year, 2022. How do you see it playing out in the housing crisis that we're occurring right at the moment?
Interesting question. So it's been slated through the federal government, Canadian federal government, that 450,000 new immigrants are going to come to Canada this year.
Yep.
I project a lot more than that. And
Okay.
the reason I project that, because in the States, there was, what is it, a bill or something that had ended last year.
Okay.
And now immigrants can just walk through the borders. No, no papers. No, nobody can stop them. The border security cannot stop them.
From Mexico, this is
Yeah,
really.
yeah. So that being
What
said,
happened to that wall? Like 5-6 years ago, we're talking about this wall, and now we're just walking through.
yeah, you can just walk right through. So that being said, some people may not want to stop in the States. Some people may have family in US and want to go in Canada and come right up here. I've noticed now in living in my small town, I've seen more of an influx of East Indian people. I've seen more
Yep.
Filipino people
Yep.
because they are the ones willing to work. We have
Sure.
a shortage of people willing to work. So what we do is, or at least what I've noticed, the trend is you either hire out and have them come and do I don't even know what the word is here, but they come here and they work for a lot cheaper. The
Yep.
minimum wage. The minimum wage to them here is a godsend. Where they're making like $3-4 a day back home, they can come here and make some money, and it seems like a lot of money essentially, but it's minimum wage.
Sure.
but at least
back
they're willing.
home. They send all the money back, and it feeds the whole
Exactly,
family, their wife, and 3 kids, or 5 kids or so. It's
exactly.
amazing. Like the world is shrunken, and currency still plays a huge role, more and
Hmm.
more on our lives. And I'm seeing also this playing out. In fact, I think recently I mentioned to you about virtual assistants in Philippines.
Hmm.
Now the whole economy is based on that, and hiring them out, you can get so much done with these virtual assistants. So so what? How do you see playing out on the housing part of it? I mean, the government of Canada is bringing in. Sure, they're bringing in. We need many immigrants in order to keep our economy going. No doubt about it. We need them, as you say. They're doing the work. Most Canadians aren't doing the work. It's Home Depot is tons of people from India now, which is great, and we need these people. But there's a housing crisis. There's not enough people to fill to room these places, and these people are like 2 to 3 people per bedroom, just so that it, they can function and get going in this world in Canada. So how do you see playing out with your knowledge on the cryptocurrency, the world economy, as well as the housing crisis and immigration coming in each and every year? How's this going to play out?
Awesome question. So, in terms of real estate itself, we're at a precipice right now where I foresee that we're going to be like jumping off a cliff. Ontario specifically,
Yep.
like if you look at it, Toronto, Vancouver,
Yep.
the major city centers, they there the housing was like overbid, significantly over. I've heard of people bidding like millions over houses.
Yeah.
So as the interest rate continues to rise, not just continued, continues to rise, that mortgage is going to become an unsustainable thing. So someone, either yourself, myself, someone in our position, will turn around when that real estate begins to fall and buy these properties, and we will offer houses to these new individuals that are coming in from
So so so
across
you
country there,
see
and we will be.
so you see the prices still going down,
I do.
even
So for
though
instance,
there's a lack of accommodation for people. The
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. So for instance,
because of the interest rate.
my buddy had bought a house about a year ago. And recently, he was paying about $3,000 all in mortgage, utilities, property tax, insurance. And as the insurance, he kept it open, trying to play the game, hoping that it would turn around. But it got to a point where it was unsustainable. With that last raise of the 0.25, was it 0.25% there,
Yeah,
that brought him up to about $4,000 he was going to be paying. And I was
right.
like, you know what? It might be wise to take this $50,000 hit as opposed to playing the game and riding it and losing even more, and then you lose the whole house, and then you've lost this completely. So he sold it for a 50K loss. But I told him, like, you know what, you have cash in hand now from that sale.
Yeah,
You might be down 50K, but now you can go and turn around, and with all the knowledge you've learned from what just happened, go and replicate the buying process. Wait till houses drop. If your house dropped 50K, imagine what all the houses in that area now, that 1 kilometer radius, they've all dropped 50K now. If that next person in that area tries to sell it for that 50K less, that might not even be enough. The person buying might want another 25 off of that.
so you're suggesting to buy now or wait another 6 months?
Wait, I would suggest wait.
Wait.
Just wait.
I
Yeah.
don't know how many realtors are eager to hear about that, but
Yeah.
all right, wait, okay.
I was
Uh,
gonna go. I was gonna go for my mortgage brokerage license,
yeah.
and I decided against it. And I'm glad I did, because I'd be a terrible broker right now with all with this advice.
Should I buy this house? No,
Yeah,
wait.
no, no, wait. But the person buying would thank me later on, at least. Though, like I think.
Well, I think Mr. Man, I do respect that you have the intention, good intentions for people. You're not thinking of your own good. So that a lot of people may be in the situation where they're thinking of themselves and their client second. So you are part different, where you're thinking of the client than yourself.
Absolutely. The way I look at it, if they win, then I win at the same time. And if I can, buy another property or two or three because somebody else didn't plan this out properly from what's coming now, then I can buy that and at least give them a place to live still. Or if they don't want to live in the house they're currently in, go and rent it to some of the new immigrants coming in there and provide housing for them. And again, the strategy for real estate is value add. So if I can take a single family home, add some value to it, make it a duplex, I can now get two families in there or two individuals, depending on how you look at it.
What's your take on Bill 23?
I don't know much about it. I started to look into it, but I don't know much about it. Can you please enlighten?
So Bill 23 definitely, it's just the provincial government saying, listen, there's a housing crisis in Ontario. We need more housing. So we had duplexes. Duplexes are now kind of a thing of the past because of the high interest rate. Now, Bill 23, now you could put a secondary additional unit at the back. If obviously within perimeters of the municipality, there's got to be, lot size has to be large enough. But typically, it's either a coach house or a secondary or a third additional suite at the back. So you got a duplex in the basement, upstairs another unit, and then a unit in the backyard as a third unit. So we're in the midst of creating this.
Mhm.
And banks are just opening up to it because it's so new. I mean, it just passed last December, so this is all new, and the banks will follow. Usually, it takes about 6 to 9 or maybe a year for banks to kind of follow suit to realize what's going on. So, Bill 23 in Kingston, where I'm from, the back unit, the coach house or the additional suite
The granny suites, yeah.
it doesn't even need parking. They don't even care for parking. That's how badly the crisis is.
Wow.
So
That's intriguing.
yeah, so that's where we're at at the moment. Which consider 10 years ago, I remember living on this one street, and someone came to the back to make sure that it wasn't an illegal unit in the basement, which was
Really?
surprising. She was from the city coming in to make sure that I wasn't renting it out in the basement. Now we're all for it. We need more people, more housing, and this is where we're at in a matter of 10 years.
That's interesting. Very, very interesting. I could see how like small additions like that would be a great addition to a home. But I also can see how the houses are now shrinking as well, and people are flocking to smaller spaces. Like the tiny houses are becoming a thing. Trailers are coming
Yes.
back in again,
Yes.
and I want to say the term is the granny suite. Is that what they're called? The smaller houses, correct?
It's either a coach house, granny suite, what's it called? Additional ADU, the term, but it's basically you could always say the mistakes from the '60s. They had huge lots,
Hmm.
wasteful land, and there's many places in many communities all over Ontario where these lots are just it's low density and urban sprawling is now curbed. So this
Hmm.
is one way of getting of increasing density in certain areas and providing housing. And government, I mean, sure, there's a lot of saying on what needs to be done for government in order to increase housing, but they're not playing it. They're not doing all that much of it. So they're encouraging developers or small developers to build housing for people, and Bill 23 helps. Interest rate, it's a short term for inflation. I think
Hmm.
it's gonna last. But once again, Mr. Man, you please tell us your insight on how do you think it's gonna play out, because we're living in very interesting times where the economy's going sideways. Like it seems like it's just halting a bit. There's a lot of little things going on the sidelines, but there's a lot of things that, like, last year everybody was buying, everybody was flipping, and now it just kind of halted to the point where
Hmm.
even
Hmm.
banks are tightening, and banks don't even want to lend.
It's funny you say that banks don't want to lend. However, if you've been able to sustain your credit rating through all that's going on,
Yep.
banks are just throwing money at you. I get emails on the daily almost. You've been approved for this credit card. You've been approved for this loan. You've been approved for this increase. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
I'm
So
okay. I'm okay.
maybe for short credit cards, but mortgages, it seems as if they're less willing.
Hmm.
From my understanding, Scotiabank, not to pick with Scotiabank, but it appears as if they've lost a lot of money from 2022 with what they were doing, and now they're like, no, we're not too interested in lending out any mortgages. They're just tightening a lot of it. We're now squeezing the light tightening credit. The
Yeah,
small stuff, unsecured, yeah, sure, as much as possible. The diversification of risk is there, but for mortgages, I don't know, for some reason they're just waiting, and it's a waiting game, it seems.
it is a waiting game, and they're not afraid to buy up people's houses either. The banks will totally buy foreclosed houses. No issues
Really?
asked. The minute someone forecloses on, oh yeah, they'll take it back and resell it to somebody else. No problem. No issues asked. No issues.
I always got the impression banks don't want to keep housing. They want to just unload it. They're not in the market of keeping housing, even to the point where there are many banks downtown where I live.
Hmm.
They don't even own the building. And I say, this is fascinating. I mean, you provide mortgages, everything goes, yeah, but we're not into housing. We're into lending money. That's what we do. So we don't care about owning the land. We care about lending funds. And so
Yeah,
that's the reasoning.
I do agree with that statement. I also agree with the statement that I had said prior. But what's going on right now too is bank mergers. A lot of bank
Oh,
mergers. They're yeah, these big conglomerates, TD,
yes.
CIBC, RBC, JP Morgan, Chase. You have the Goldman Sachs of the world, and they're just merging with all the smaller companies. I'm sure a few months back you've heard of Silvergate,
Yes.
was it Prime Trust, a few other banks that have
Silicon
collapsed. And when
Valley.
they collapse,
Yeah.
they will swoop in, buy that bank, buy all their assets, and assets being houses as well if they have those under management. So with that being said, I was watching a symposium. It's like a 3-hour symposium all about bank mergers, and the way they play these things are very very slick because they say what we want to do is to not have the banks conniver being carnivorous, where they can assume and take all these smaller banks that can't afford to stay afloat and just reduce the number of banks. There used to be about 40,000 banks, I want to say, in the US.
Okay.
Then it went to 20,000. Now there's like a couple hundred, not a couple hundred, a couple like 10, 12,000, I want to say. Don't quote me on that. But the number is shrinking significantly. And the way you have these regulators talking about this on the side now, they're going to take it as long as they need to come to their conclusion on this bank merger thing. But at the time of bank mergers, when they say, "Yep, this is what the regulation is," these other banks are going to have bought all the banks that they can, grabbed all those assets, and now it's locked in because the merger had secured that regulation.
This is
At
the
that
time.
point,
This is the in the low times. This is the time where multimillionaires are made
yeah,
in a couple
this
5
is
years.
this is where it's built. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm all about empowering the individual and providing knowledge and sharing that knowledge. So what do you suggest to people who want to know more about the world economy, about crypto, about the real estate situation? Really, what I like about you, Mr. Man, is the behind the scenes. I get the impression that you've seen behind the scenes and you're not fooled by what you see on TV. You've seen behind, just like the man, just like Wizard of Oz, where you see the man behind the scene. It really turns out to be a white man, white middle-aged man,
Hmm.
controlling the big wizard and providing a lot of fear. So my question is how to empower the individual for the next coming years.
The best thing I could recommend and suggest is to do your own research on a full macro scale. When I say macro, I don't just mean like, Ontario or Canada and US. I mean, pull way back and give yourself a 50,000 foot view where you can see what's happening globally because everything is playing out now and they're all a puzzle piece into the big picture. China is leading in terms of the digital currency itself, in terms of taking over with what's going on. Then you have testing grounds or emerging economy, I should say, emerging economies like Africa. If you ever watched the movie The Black Panther, where you see like Africa, we all know Africa is a third world country and poor, but then you have some countries in Africa that just has technology like you would not believe. that's where we're heading. Because with digital money now already existing in terms of the form of QR codes and tap and a key fob. They have key fob payments out in Africa now
Really?
through some of the companies. So money moves at the speed of light there. Meanwhile, we're still here using cash. So what I'd recommend is literally to do research, get
Are
familiar.
there books to read or YouTube channels or podcasts to listen? What do you suggest for people to learn more about it?
So some of the my favorite YouTube channels that I watch are my channel, Mr. Man Crypto Talk. Look that up for sure. I will provide the link to Rene.
Yes.
I will give you a macro view of what's going on. It'll give you behind the scenes in terms of the bank, in terms of real estate, in terms of the wars taking place, in terms of the banks falling, in terms of who some of these big players are, and the issues that they're living with and dealing with right now, and how we feel that ripple effect from them. Rene also has a podcast on Facebook and on YouTube. That's actually how we met. I met him. I started watching his videos on YouTube, and I thought, I gotta reach out to this man. This man knows his real estate. And literally that day, I gave him a call. We set up a meeting, and now here we are, about a year and a half later.
It was a blessing in disguise, and I really appreciate having you made that call and getting to know you, Mr. Man, because I liked your approach, your ideas, and your willingness to put yourself out there. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So just wrapping up. So people want to find you at your channel. There's more information there. And you don't hold back. You give it like it is.
I don't hold back at all. I give it raw. If the channel blows up because YouTube isn't appreciative of what I have to say and how real I am, I understand we're living in a time of censorship right now, and there are bills being passed or on the cusp of being passed that could enhance this censorship. If my channel blows up one day, you'll know and understand what happened. That's because I'm being very, very raw and very truthful. And if something ever happens to my YouTube channel, look me up on Twitter. My name is Mr. Man XRP. That's MRMANXRP. And I give you nothing but fire content on that page. And feel free to shoot me a message. I'm very, very amicable and personable. I will reply back to you as soon as I have a free minute.
Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us. We'll chat later, most definitely. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having a channel. Everybody watching, I want to thank you guys. I love and appreciate you, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Sounds good. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Making major moves. We going all in. Like we got nothing to lose. We making moves. We making major moves. We making moves.